All right, let's bring in Frank Klose. The Phillies Mailbag is back open for the 2018 season. The Phillies Mailbag every Tuesday right here with Phillies beat reporter Frank Klose of 97.3 ESPN.com. We will always take your Phillies questions. And, Frank, it's one of the things you and I discussed late last night was a lot more interesting storylines around this Phillies team.
Yeah, it felt like last year we were having discussions about Michael Saunders and who the backup outfielder should be, and when will Daniel Nava recover from his injury. So I think there's definitely a lot more excitement this time around.
No doubt about it. Before we get into the Phillies mailbag here, let's get your take on the report from John Heyman saying that the Phillies have dialogue with Jake Arrieta. Does it make sense? Connect some dots for us and give us maybe a percentage that you think this is likely to happen or not likely to happen.
Well, it's getting kind of late in the offseason, and Jake Arrieta still does not have a deal. And if you look around baseball, how many teams are sitting there with enough money in their pocket that if somebody like Arrieta were to fall into their lap, they could make a jump at him and add him to their roster? Much has been made of the connection that he has with the former Orioles front office that was Andy McPhail and Matt Klentak, now, of course, president and GM of the Phillies. And certainly there's a good relationship personally there. I don't think the Phillies are going to go long-term with him. That there's a lot of concern with his age. I mean, he's 31 years old, and as we saw with Cliff Lee and Roy Halladay, around 34 years old or so, your body might start breaking down for those pitchers that have kind of carried such a tough workload over the years. So I think, if anything now, the Phillies are just kind of involved just to see if he falls into their lap. I think they might be willing to do more than an average annual value compared to Yu Darvish got, which was about $21 million. I think they would be comfortable at $25 million a year, but I don't think they would ever go longer than 3 years. You just don't. You're just getting yourself into a territory there where they're going to be in a position where they're contenders, they're going to need the money, and they don't want to tie up $25 million in a pitcher who's not helping them. So I think the Phillies are trying to be opportunists here. I don't think they're ready to open their checkbook for a long-term deal for someone like Arrieta. But if he can't find work and they like each other, I mean, at least there's a possibility something could work out there.
Frank, that said, the Phillies are near the bottom of the league in salary, right? I mean, money shouldn't be an issue. They're like 29th or 30th, right, near the bottom?
Yeah, the money is not an issue at all. In fact, the Phillies president, Andy McPhail, was talking in the offseason about making some capital improvements, not because they're trying to skimp on payroll, but because there's simply too many young players that are talented that haven't earned their dollar yet. So, I mean, Rhys Hoskins is going to make around $500,000. J.P. Crawford's going to make around $500,000. Odubel Herrera is one of the more expensive players, is only going to make around $5 million. So when you just added up all the salaries, they just happen to be low. I mean, they're not trying to be cheap, but it does leave some money in their pocket in case the perfect opportunity falls into their lap.
Frank's with us here. The mailbag is open. We go right into that question because Greg says, well, why are they so hesitant then to add another pitcher? They only got one legit starting pitcher. If you want to fill the seats at Citizens Bank Park, why not add another frontline starter?
Well, I think that's why the Phillies are having this dialogue with Arrieta, is because they are indeed open in adding somebody. They were dialoguing with Chris Tillman, who ended up going back to the Baltimore Orioles. So the Phillies are keeping their ears open, their options open for adding a veteran starter. But, you have Aaron Nola. That's the one he's talking about, in case you didn't notice. But behind him, I think Vince Velasquez and Jared Eichhoff are going to get a real opportunity to really show what they can do, even though through injuries and poor performance last year, neither player lived up to expectations. So really you've got two spots in the back of the rotation and a lot of names that could fill them. Think of Nick Pivetta, think of Ben Lively, think of Zach Eflin, think of Jake Thompson, think of Mark Leiter, and then even Tom Eshelman might pitch himself into the mix. So they really do have a whole lot of available possible starters for those two slots. Nobody's really seemed to step up yet, which is what begs that question. What you don't want to have is what seemed to happen last year at some times, where there was this three-way roundabout between AAA, the majors, and the disabled list, and it was just kind of each week somebody different was up there pitching. They don't want that. So a veteran starter would be very nice. But also at the same time, it would kind of be a shame if, let's say, Ben Lively moves on because, the Phillies do have a veteran starter along the lines of, let's just say, a Jeremy Hellickson type. And in the end, they missed out on an opportunity. So I think they're trying to do what they can to take advantage of opportunities out there. But at the same time, if it's going to be a mediocre veteran starting pitcher versus some of their young guys that they already have that have some talent at least, they might as well just stick with the young guys in that situation.
Frank Klose is with us. The Phillies mailbag is open, and Ed wants to know, Frank, if the Phillies hope to make a major splash or two next year, don't they at least need to be respectable this year? Meaning, would a 74-win or so season hurt their quest to make that splash, or is giving up the money all that matters?
So I don't think it's either necessarily. Now, the win total, I think we don't need to worry about that. I think that any free agent who's going to come into the Phillies organization, who's going to make a long-term commitment, they're going to look at the bigger picture and say, will I win if I sign with this organization? And it might not be immediately. I mean, who knows? Next year could be a year of contention for the Phillies. But I would recommend we take a look at Eric Hosmer, who just signed an 8-year deal to be with the San Diego Padres. I think in 2018, the San Diego Padres project to probably fare worse than the 2018 Kansas City Royals. And those were the two teams that he was kind of going back and forth with. So he signed the 8-year deal with San Diego, not because of the San Diego Padres are better next year, but he looks around and he sees the Padres have an upcoming shortstop, Fernando Tatis Jr., that's really exciting. They've got Manuel Margot in center field. They've got a lot of young pieces in place that hopefully will develop into a contender. So in terms of Hosmer, he was not dissuaded by the fact that the San Diego Padres had a putrid win total last year. I can't even tell you what that is off the top of my head, and maybe even Hosmer can't tell you that. It's really about the direction of the organization and where they might go long term. And if the player's comfortable that the Phillies' plan is indeed a plan and it's going in the right direction, whether they win 74 this year or 86, I don't think it makes a difference.
And Frank Carl wants to know what kind of year can Rhys Hoskins put up with Carlos Santana hitting behind him.
Well, I would like to preface this by saying we don't know if Carlos Santana is going to hit behind Rhys Hoskins. The traditional mind of the lineup, you like to think that you had a power hitter protecting a power hitter or a strong on base kind of guy, but Jake Kapler is going to be kind of a wild card with this lineup, I think. A lot of the newer research seems to say you put your best hitter second. And we used to think traditionally that the number 2 hitter's the kind of guy that would move a runner up who gets on base or sacrifice bunts to get a runner into scoring position. They really want your high productivity bat second now, and that's something that the Miami Marlins did last year when they had D. Gordon leading off and Giancarlo Stanton batting second. Now that was not a traditional model, and I would not be shocked if we saw a lineup in which Carlos Santana is batting second and Rhys Hoskins right behind him, kind of with the idea that you get your high on base guys like Cesar Hernandez first, follow them right up with your 2 top bats, and the results are going to produce themselves. So even if Hoskins is batting behind Santana, I don't think that necessarily puts him in a worse position, because he's going to come up a lot where Cesar Hernandez and Carlos Santana are both on base, and that's not really a situation where the pitcher can really pitch around him, because he's got to get an out at that situation. So I would not be shocked if the lineup begins with Cesar Hernandez, has Carlos Santana hitting second, then Rhys Hoskins third. I can't even begin to figure out the rest of the lineup yet, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what Jake Kapler pencils in this weekend when Grapefruit League action starts.
Yeah, I agree with you. Putting together a lineup with this team is pretty tough, but that's a good thing because there's a lot of interesting and intriguing options. Frank, let me go back to the Arrieta thing real fast. If they were to add Arrieta, let's say they signed Arrieta, where in your mind does that put this team's ceiling?
The number I would like with an Arrieta type, provided. See, here's the thing: as we just kind of said, some of those other starters are still kind of question marks. So Which Vince Velasquez are you going to see? Which Jared Eichhoff are you going to see? I mean, if both of them have decent seasons, I mean, you could be talking 86 wins in an ideal world if everything else works out. But right now, I would have him around 76. I think the over/under is what, 74.5. I'm trying to remember now what the latest out of Vegas is, but
I think it was 75.5.
Yeah, 75.5. Okay, but Arrieta certainly changes things, because now instead of one of those from that long list of names who might be up and down pitching for you fifth, everybody else slots back one, and they're that much stronger. So that really does enhance your team by, you know, even if you go by wins above replacement and he can cover with a WAR of 5. Compare that to somebody who might be a negative WAR pitcher and kind of the swing on that. I mean, it is a big deal when you're talking wins and losses. So I'll put my highest possible ceiling with Arrieta at 86.
All right, Frank Klose, don't forget, you can send us your mailbag questions every week at Frank Klose on Twitter. He'll be back on Tuesdays to answer your Phillies mailbag questions. And when something happens with the Phillies, check out 973ESPN.com and at Frank Klose on Twitter, as he's got a piece up currently. The mailbag is up with answers to your questions, plus his piece on the Phillies reaching out to Jake Arrieta. Dialogue is the word, dialogue. Maybe they didn't reach out. We're not too sure how that all went down, but he's got the details at 973ESPN.com. All right, Frank, another season is here. And, Frank, you'll be in Dunedin this weekend?
Yeah, I'll be in Dunedin for the Grapefruit League opener on Friday, and then on Saturday in Clearwater for the home opener. So really excited to get down to that Florida weather, although I think that weather came up here today.
Yeah, it's been beautiful out. And we'll have Frank on Friday with a preview and some reaction from the Phillies opener. And on Saturday, he'll also be down there as well for the Grapefruit League beginning is this weekend there, PT. Frank, appreciate it, pal.
Great to talk to you guys.